Hello, this is Miss Hurst and this is the second video on how to answer longer response exam questions. We're going to be looking at a 12-mark question in this video. So just like the first one, you will need the same equipment, 2 pens in different colours and preferably 2 pieces of A4 paper, 1 plain and 1 lined, not essential if you don't have 2 different types. And then I suggest adapting the tutorial to your normal way of working. If you are allocated extra time, give yourself the extra time. If you're allocated a laptop, work on a laptop in the same way you will during your exam. Your exam paper is worth 100 marks, so I went through this in the first video. You have 1 hour and 45 minutes to answer the whole paper, 105 minutes. Therefore, you should be aiming for around 1 minute spent per mark. It's really important to pace yourself throughout the exam. We are looking at 12-mark question, so you will need about 12 minutes to answer that question. If you are leaving these questions in the exams blank, or you are just going to write 1 sentence or 1 answer, then you are throwing away all of these marks, and it's really, really important that you gain as many as possible. It's 50% of your final GCSE. Always have a go. You never know, you might pick up what I like to call accidental marks. There's usually clues in the question and you will know more than you think you do. So, all the questions in the exam paper will start with these words. Starting at the top of this list, give, state and name. These types of questions are usually 1 or 2 marks. We then move on to the describe and outline, then explain and justify. And today, again, we're going to be looking at this last section here, which are designed to stretch and challenge you. And they are evaluate, discuss and compare. This is the question. Nutritional needs change during various life stages. Discuss the nutritional needs of the following groups: preschool children, teenagers, and later adulthood. Now, you're not choosing just one of these groups, you need to write about all 3 of these groups. And as we said, we're looking at this last section here, so it is a discuss question. We can see that it's about nutritional needs specifically, so make sure that you are considering this in your answer, throughout your answer. Don't go off on a tangent, it won't get the marks that you need. And we're looking at the fact that it's a discuss question. As I said, you need to write about all 3 of those stages. So if we break those down in terms of the marks, 12 divided by 3 is 4. So each of these will be approximately 4 marks per section. So again, whilst you're in the exam, it's really important that you understand how it's going to be marked to make sure that you are going to be hitting the mark scheme and getting the marks that you deserve. So, it's your plain A4 piece of paper ready, and I'd like you to write each of the 3 stages in bubbles on the paper. As you can probably guess, we're going to be working through it on a mind map. If you do not work very well as a mind map and you prefer to write a list, then do it that way instead. As I said before, you need to work in the best way possible for you so that you can replicate this during the exam. This way of working is my way of suggesting how you actually work in your actual exam. I would get some scrap paper from an invigilator. You can ask for spare paper or use the back of the exam. It won't be marked, this part here. The only bit that's marked is what you write on the question paper. So if you work things out and plan it before you write your answer, in particular for a 12-mark question, it means that you will be a lot more specific and you will pick up those marks a lot more quickly. So it's not a waste of time to do this in your exam as long as you are aware of pacing yourself. So once you've written these 3 here, preschool children, teenagers, later adulthood, we are going to start by looking at preschool children. And again, make sure that you are specifically looking at nutritional needs. That's what the question is asking you for. Now, preschool, before starting school, these children are approximately 1 to 5 years old. So now what's a good idea is if you personally know any 1 to 5 year olds, so maybe siblings or cousins or anything like that, friends, siblings, then I would like you to have a think about their lifestyle and their bodies and what they will need in terms of food, how and why and where they're getting it from. Okay, so these are the kind of questions you need to think about. What is happening to their bodies at this age? who is supporting their food choices, as they're not preparing their own food. A 3-year-old is not going to the fridge and getting out the food that they would like to eat and preparing a meal. So somebody else is doing this for them. So think about this. How often should they be eating? So again, think about the size of a 1 to 5-year-old body and the size of the stomach as well, and how often they should be eating and how much they can eat at a time. And then what types of food should they be eating and what should they potentially be avoiding as well. Okay, so those are some questions to help you think about everything surrounding preschool children and their nutritional needs. I'm going to give you a couple of answers before we pause for you to do your own answers. Quite an obvious one. They will be growing and developing very quickly. They're small children and they do grow quickly. So therefore, if we think of growth, what do we need nutritionally to help us with our growth? We need protein. Hopefully you remember these buzzwords. Protein equals growth and repair. So nutritional needs of a preschool child will be protein, and that is because it helps with growth and repair. Another thing that grows quite quickly within a child is their skeleton, is their bones. Something else we would need to help with this, calcium, as that assists with bone formation and help with their strong and healthy bones growing. Okay, so this is the kind of thing that you need to be thinking about. So with the first question, what is happening to their bodies at this age? They're growing and developing quickly. That then leads you to the nutritional needs that they would need protein and they would need calcium. What I'd like you to do is pause the video for 2 minutes, and I would like you to add any information around this little mind map relating to the nutritional needs of a 1 to 5-year-old child. You are aiming for at least 4 points. So I've given you one little stem off there. So aim for 3 more if you can in the next 2 minutes. If you've got extra time during the exam, you may wish to pause for slightly longer than 2 minutes. Okay, so hopefully you have paused for 2 minutes and filled up your preschool children mind map. We're now going to move on to teenagers. Teenagers being approximately 12 to 18 years old. And if you're somebody watching this that is doing their GCSE, then chances are this is you. So now think about you, think about your friends. What is happening to yours and their bodies at this age, and think in particular about the differences between males and females. Think about who is supporting yours and your friends' food choices. You're quite strong-willed, you're quite independent at your age, so you are choosing your foods quite often. How often should you be eating, not how often do you eat? As when I asked this question in the classroom about have you had breakfast this morning, majority of teenagers will say no. However, breakfast is very, very important, and you all should know that it is very important. So here in this exam, I'd like you to write about how often you should be eating, not what you are eating, because it's about nutritional needs. So what do you need? What types of food should you be eating and what types should be avoided? Okay, so pause your video for 2 minutes. I'm not going to give you any answers with this one. This one's about you. You should be able to write about yourself. And I'd like you to add information around the mind map related to the nutritional needs of a 12 to 18-year-old teenager. Aim for at least 4 points. And last but not least, we're looking at later adult. Now, it's got the word later in it, so it's not very specific, but what I would suggest is you're thinking about 60 plus years old, because we're looking at a time in life where there are specific nutritional needs in order for you to write about these in your exam. Okay, so when we're looking at children, there's particular things happening to a child's body that require this nutrition. When you're a teenager, again, lots of changes. And when you're a later adult, we've got changes again. So think about, again, people in your life, if you can, and what their lifestyle is like. So grandparents, great-grandparents, anyone you know like that. And think about what is happening to their bodies. Who is supporting their food choices? Are they making it themselves, or are they potentially having some assistance? How often should they be eating, and how much are they likely to eat during a meal? If you think about how size of stomachs, and also in terms of dexterity, so how quickly they eat as well, and what types of food should they be eating. We're going to pause for 2 minutes. I'm not giving you any answers on this one again either. And I'd like you to think about at least 4 points, if you can, relating to the nutritional needs of an adult over 60. Okay, so we should have now a full A4 page of notes, whether that's in list form or mind map form. You've got the answers I gave you for the preschool children, then you should hopefully have at least 4 points around each of the other paragraphs of nutritional needs. Let's go back to the question. You are about to answer it. Okay, so in order to answer it, all you do is you go round your mind maps and you take each of the points and write them as a sentence. You do not need to repeat the question in the first line of your answer. Absolutely no point doing this. It does not gain you any marks. All it does is fill up some of the lines and make you think like you've given a really good answer because you've written a lot of words. That's not how it works. You need to write words that are important and words that link with the mark scheme. So don't bother with writing the question. They will be growing and developing very quickly. You can see I've got that on my mind map. I have translated that directly in a sentence, like so. Therefore, protein is important for growth and repair. Again, I've taken the next M off my mind map and written it as a short, quick sentence. Calcium is also important to help with bone formation. That there is a very quick, very simple answer that I can write in the exam paper as my answer to the question without filling it with fluff and faffing around with lots of words that aren't needed and not necessary. So what you need to do is go round your mind map or use your list and write it up in nice, short, quick, snappy sentences. You cannot write bullet points. It has to be a paragraph, but just put those sentences together to make it into a paragraph. So pause the video for 6 minutes. And that's the time that you have left to write this up. There's plenty of time when you are sat in complete silence during an exam, focused entirely onto the question. So 6 minutes and go around writing a heading for each life stage, then write up each of the nutritional needs you've identified in one big paragraph. Because in the exam, this is what the exam paper looks like. You've got the question at the top, and then you've got the 3 headings written for you with space for your paragraph underneath each one. So it's like a 3-part question. 6 minutes, off you go. Okay, so you now have an answer for a 12-mark question. Well done, you. We are going to mark it. So swap to your second colour pen, and at every answer you get correct, give it a tick so you can clearly see it in the second colour throughout your paragraphs that you've written. These are the answers for preschool children, so there are quite a few different bullet points there that you could have written. You only needed to write 4 different points, and even here in vitamins you've got 5 different vitamins there. It says with linked responses to functions that you could have chosen to write about for preschool children. So let's go through slowly. So a period of rapid growth and development. Hopefully you've got this because I did give this to you as an answer. And protein for growth, repair and energy. Again, I gave this to you as an answer, so hopefully you've got this one too. You might have written about starchy carbohydrates for warmth and energy. If you've got that, give it a tick. Again, writing about carbohydrates is one, and then saying what it's for as well. And dietary fibre to aid digestion, prevent constipation. You don't want too much of this though, because it could bulk out the diet and fill a child up with one type of nutrients when actually they need quite a lot of nutrients to meet their nutritional needs. Next, vitamins, in particular A, B, C, E and K, and it says here with linked responses to function, so it's important that you don't just write a vitamin, you need to write what that vitamin does. So vitamin A, for example, helps with healthy immune system, helps us to see in dim light. Vitamin C fights infection or heals wounds. Vitamin E, healthy skin and eyes, strong immune system. Vitamin K heals wounds and helps with blood clotting, because you actually do want your blood to clot once you've got a wound, otherwise you just keep bleeding and you bleed out. Okay, so if you've written any of these vitamins, you must also have written what the function is of that vitamin as well. You might be thinking, well, what about vitamin D or B even? Vitamin B, there are quite a few. So there's vitamins B1, 2 and 3, which all help with energy release and healthy nervous system. There's vitamin B5, which helps with the metabolism of nutrients. There's B6, which is nerve and brain development. B7, energy production, protein metabolism. B9, which is folic acid, really helpful for women that are pregnant. I know that you are looking at children ages 1 to 5, but this folic acid you might recognise as something that is suggested for pregnant ladies, as it also prevents spina bifida, which is something that's quite common in as a birth defect. And vitamin B12, which helps with healthy red blood cells and energy release. So lots of B vitamins to choose from, but if you have written about B vitamins in your answer, make sure you have linked with functions. Next, minerals. You might have written that they would need iron, fluoride, calcium or phosphorus, but if you have written any of these, you must also have included what the function of each of these are. So iron, healthy red blood cells. Fluoride, you might know this, is in toothpaste, and this helps with preventing tooth decay. Calcium, I gave you this answer, helps with bone formation, heart function and healthy red blood cells. And phosphorus helps with bone formation and energy release. Now I remember phosphorus is helpful for bone formation because it reminds me of fossils, phosphorus and fossils. Fossils aren't actually made of phosphorus, but that is just the way that I remember that is what its function is. So for some of these vitamins and minerals, there might be little things or little links that you can come up with to help you remember what their functions are, because it's really important that you are writing this as extra information for those top marks. The next bullet points of marks that you could achieve for preschool children is being reliant on their parents for choosing and providing food, or caregivers as well rather than just parents. Eating habits and patterns can be established from an early age, so ensuring that they are eating a healthy diet is something that they continue to do. And regular meal patterns, so making sure they have their breakfast, lunch and dinner without snacking on high sugar or fatty items. So encourage snacking on fruit and vegetables as part of 5 a day. Using the Eat Well Guide dietary guidelines, really important, and you should all know about the Eat Well Guide. And as I said, breakfast, lunch and tea with healthy snacks as appropriate. So low salt is really important as well with young children. So 4 of these points in your answer minimum is what you need, and there's loads and loads of information there, and you could have had any of those as points. So I'm hoping that you've got at least 4 ticks in your preschool children paragraph. We're going to move on to teenagers. And again, lots and lots of points that you could have written, but hold on. This top bit here looks very similar to preschool children. So you can't get the mark twice. So if you've written protein for growth and repair in one and protein for growth and repair in the other, they are both correct, but really you want quite a range of information to show the breadth of your knowledge. So hopefully if you've not written starchy carbohydrate in preschool children, you might have written starchy carbohydrate in your teenager paragraph. So again, same vitamins, A, B, C, E and K, and also the same minerals. iron, fluoride, calcium and phosphorus are here. Because as teenagers you might be much bigger than a preschool child, but your body is going through a lot of development. So there's a lot of growing that's going on as well. So go through and make sure and see which of those that you have got in your paragraph and give those a tick. And then we'll look at the second half, which is slightly different. You're going to continue to use Eat Well Plate dietary guidelines, eating a variety of food. You're going to have breakfast, lunch and dinner with healthy snacks. Your activity levels are going to be either increasing or decreasing, leading to a greater or reduced need for energy. So energy in equals energy out. So it really depends on you as a teenager and your energy levels and what your activity is as to what your nutritional needs are. If you're somebody that is very sporty and you are playing sport on a daily basis and you're out at the weekends and you're out in the evenings and you're at school, you're part of all the school teams, then you are going to need nutritionally more energy than somebody that's a bit of a bookworm and likes to spend their lunchtimes reading, or and they don't walk to school and they might get public transport or get picked up. Or so think about those different lifestyle choices as well. Also, when you are a teenager, you are choosing what your morals are, and you might have environmental, social, economic, different ideas of where you would like your food to come from and what type of food you might like to eat. So vegetarianism or veganism is something that could be relevant here as well. And I did say about the differences between males and females. So puberty is a period of very rapid development and growth and change in the body, and this will happen at different stages and different ages across the teenage years. For girls, as you have your menstruation, you have a period, you have a greater need for iron to replace what's lost, and then boys need more energy from starchy carbohydrates generally. So again, differences within the development. And importance of breakfast is it's fueling the brain. As I said, I would like you to write in your exam the nutritional needs that should be given, not what you are actually eating, as majority of teenagers don't eat breakfast, but they really, really should. It's really important. So hopefully you've got at least 4 of these points in your answer. Give those a tick in your second colour pen. And then we're moving on to later adulthood. Slightly smaller list of bullet points for this one, slightly more difficult to come up with those answers for this one here. But again, the nutritional needs vary depending on your lifestyle and occupations, the job, and what they're doing for work or whether they're retired. Osteoporosis is something that, again, in late adulthood, which is why I was saying 60 plus, is something that's really important to think about, and that is where the bones start to become weaker and are more susceptible to breaks and damage. So calcium, vitamin D, which wasn't something that we've looked at in previous paragraphs, and phosphorus, again phosphorus, fossils, bones. Coronary heart disease, again something to think about. Energy balance, like with a teenager, depending on your lifestyle. Continuing to use Eat Well Plate dietary guidelines and eating a variety of food. Remember, eat a rainbow. Increased life expectancy, so people are living longer, and that means that food needs and eating patterns, everything changes, as well as companionship. So somebody that maybe moves into a retirement home or a kind of a supported living situation, they might have different nutritional needs dependent on their health and their lifestyle and their living situation as well. So increased life expectancy means that people's bodies are lasting longer. And smaller quantities are needed because likely to have less energy levels and be doing a lot less sport. This is linked to protein, carbohydrate and fat, and a loss of appetite. Generally, as people get older, they do tend to have smaller appetites and eat a lot less at meal times. So that continuing to use the Eat Well plate and dietary guidelines is what's been consistent across all three of these. So any question you have on nutrition, always link the Eat Well plate, always, the Eat Well guide. Hopefully you've got at least 4 of these points in your answer, and then if you look at your whole answer, you should have at least 12 ticks in your second colour pen. This is the very last part of marking your answer. It doesn't mean if you've got 12 ticks that you've got 12 marks, because we now need to look at this grid here before awarding your final mark. Now A01 and A02 stand for assessment objective, and there are 4 of these assessment objectives that you are being tested across with your GCSE. In your exam paper, you will only be tested on 1, 2 and 4, because assessment objective 3 is what you are tested when you do your practical. So that's about preparing and cooking food items. So 1, 2 and 4 are looking at your written content and your knowledge and the application of your knowledge. So let's have a look at how you would get 4 out of the 12 marks, and that is if you have written an excellent response demonstrating clear knowledge and understanding of the specific dietary requirements, you have used highly appropriate technical terminology confidently and accurately, and in relation to the indicative content, so the content that I've read out and explained that you could get your marks for, have you covered all of this content? Think about this. If you're not quite there with excellent response, go 1 down and award between 2 and 3 marks. Next, award 6 to 8 marks for an excellent answer showing in-depth application of knowledge. So that's writing about the vitamins and minerals and then talking about the functions of those, which shows your understanding. Explaining in detail the concept of individual nutritional needs. So that's making sure that each of your paragraphs, all 3 of those life stages, you've made sure that they're individual and different, because they are different stages. And the majority of the points in the indicative content have been addressed. So in the mark scheme, have you got at least 12 ticks because you have addressed most of the points and used accurate terminology, accurate words and phrases. So think about where you think you are. If you think you're at the top, it's excellent. You could not have written any more. You've got most of the points that have been given in the mark scheme. You are right up there in this top band. If not, go down 1 and see where you think you might be. Okay, so your coloured ticks are going to help you with answering these. Once you've got this, you should have your mark out of 12. Although this is a revision or exam technique task, it's perfectly acceptable to use this during your exam. You've got the space, you can ask for spare paper. You will not be marked on your mind map or your list. You will only be marked on the question answer that you write in the exam paper. So, although it might feel like a waste of time and like you don't have enough time in the exam to do it, you have got 12 minutes to write up your 12-mark question, so you do have enough time. Stops you from bouncing around. Good luck, and I hope this helps you with answering your questions.